Deep within the dense canopy of evergreen woods, something extraordinary unfolded. The morning light barely pierced through the thick foliage, casting a golden glow over the forest floor. Dew clung to every leaf, creating tiny prisms that caught the dim sunlight. In this serene corner of wilderness, an unusual scene was taking place. A small human baby, no more than 18 months old, sat alone amidst a carpet of fallen leaves. His red onesie was stained with dirt, his cheeks streaked with dried tears. This was little Leo Harper, and how he ended up here, miles from any trail or settlement, remained a mystery. The nearest village, Mapleton, lay 5 miles away. Yet everyone agreed on one thing. Something remarkable was happening just 20 feet behind him. A massive black bear stood there, watching with cautious eyes. She didn't charge or roar. Instead, she tilted her head as if trying to comprehend why this tiny human was in her domain. Sarah Thompson, an early morning hiker with a passion for wildlife photography, had stumbled upon the scene. Her hands trembled so violently that she could barely capture the images that would soon captivate the nation. Through her zoom lens, Sarah noticed something even more astonishing. The bear was protecting the child. Every time Leo crawled toward a steep ravine nearby, the bear moved to block his path. When he cried, she made soft grunting noises until he calmed down. "I've studied bears for decades," Forest Ranger Ethan Brooks later remarked while examining the photos. "But I've never seen anything like this. That bear should have either attacked or fled. Instead, she's guarding him." The mystery deepened when search and rescue teams arrived. The bear retreated into the trees but lingered at a distance as paramedics tended to Leo. Though dehydrated, the toddler was otherwise unharmed. An incredible feat for a child who had spent a night alone in predator-infested woods. Wildlife biologist Rachel Kim explained, pointing to tracks in the mud. "See these coyote prints? They circle around but stay at least 30 feet away because of the bear." She created a protective perimeter. Back in Mapleton, Leo's parents, Emma and James Harper, were frantic. They had tucked Leo into his crib the previous night and checked on him before going to bed themselves. Somehow, between midnight and dawn, their baby vanished. The front door was wide open, yet nothing else in the house appeared disturbed. No footprints, no fingerprints, nothing on the security cameras. It was as though Leo had simply disappeared. The truth proved stranger than anyone imagined. 3 days after Leo's rescue, Emma Harper spotted something peculiar through her kitchen window. At the edge of their backyard, where the property met the forest, stood the black bear. She wasn't threatening or approaching. She simply gazed toward the house. When Emma called the forest rangers, they uncovered a shocking discovery buried inches beneath the surface of the Harpers' backyard. Bones. Small bear cub bones. This land used to be part of the forest before it was developed 15 years ago, forensic veterinarian Dr. Mia Patel explained. Carbon dating confirmed the bones were about that old. They belonged to this bear's cub. The pieces began falling into place. 15 years earlier, during the construction of the Harper home, something tragic must have happened to the cub, perhaps due to construction equipment or human interference. No one could say for certain. What was clear was that the bear, whom locals called Shadowclaw, due to distinctive markings on her face, had never forgotten where her cub had died. Bears possess extraordinary spatial memory and sense of smell, Rachel Kim told reporters. When she found Leo alone in the forest, something triggered her maternal instincts. Instead of seeing a human, she saw a baby who needed protection, just like her cub did all those years ago. Investigations revealed that the night Leo disappeared, a strong gust of wind likely blew open his bedroom window, which had been left slightly ajar for fresh air. Having recently learned to climb out of his crib, Leo may have crawled out the window into the backyard, then wandered into the forest where Shadowclaw found him, in the very spot where she remembered losing her own cub. The Harpers decided to move. They couldn't remain in a house built atop such tragedy. Before leaving, however, they took an unprecedented step. Working with forest services, they established the land as a protected bear sanctuary. Today, a small plaque marks the entrance to what is now known as Shadowclaw Reserve. It reads, "Where a mother's love transcended species." Shadowclaw still roams these woods, sometimes spotted by hikers at the edge of the tree line, gazing toward the human world that took her cub, but gave her, for one night, a chance to be a mother again. "It makes you wonder," Sarah Thompson said in her final interview about that morning. "If a bear can show such compassion to a human child, what does that say about us? Maybe we're not as different as we think." Leo Harper is 5 years old now. He's too young to fully grasp what happened that night, but on his bedroom wall hangs a framed photograph of Shadowclaw taken from a safe distance. When asked about it, he simply says, "That's my forest friend. Mom says she watched over me when I was lost." And perhaps, in the wisdom only children possess, that simple explanation is enough. What few people knew was that Leo's story didn't end with his rescue. The connection between the boy and the bear continued in ways that would astonish scientists and locals alike. Dr. Rachel Kim, initially in town for a brief research trip, decided to stay in Mapleton. What began as a routine study turned into a years-long exploration of interspecies behavior. She rented a cabin near the newly established Shadowclaw Reserve, setting up cameras and observation points with permission from forest authorities. "I couldn't walk away from this," she explained during a TED Talk 3 years later. "In 20 years of wildlife biology, I'd never witnessed anything that challenged our understanding of animal cognition so profoundly." Her footage told an extraordinary story. Shadowclaw regularly patrolled the borders of the reserve, keeping predators at bay. But on certain days, especially when storms approached, she would emerge from the forest and sit at the boundary line, looking out toward the town where Leo now lived with his family in their new home. Emma Harper noticed this pattern too. On those same days, Leo became unusually restless, often asking to visit the trees. At first, Emma dismissed it as coincidence, but after the 5th occurrence, even she couldn't deny something unusual was happening. "It's as if they can sense each other," she told the local newspaper. "I know how that sounds. If I hadn't lived through this myself, I'd think it was nonsense." Pediatrician Dr. Laura Bennett offered a scientific theory. Children who experience trauma at a young age sometimes develop heightened sensitivities to environmental cues. Leo might be responding to changes in barometric pressure that precede storms, the same changes that might trigger Shadowclaw's protective instincts. Others weren't convinced by such rational explanations. When Leo turned 3, he began drawing pictures of a large black figure he consistently called Mama Bear. Despite having no conscious memory of his night in the forest, he told elaborate stories about Mama Bear teaching him which berries to eat and how to find water in hollow logs, details he couldn't possibly know. "Children have remarkable imaginations," noted child psychologist Dr. Daniel Hughes. But Leo's stories contain surprisingly accurate wilderness survival information. When Dr. Kim reviewed his drawings, she confirmed these behaviors were specific to the bears in the region. The Harpers struggled with the media attention. Reporters camped outside their new home for weeks. Documentary film crews requested exclusive rights to Leo's story, and scientists sent research proposals from around the world. The family declined most requests, wanting to give Leo as normal a childhood as possible. James Harper, a former investment banker with little interest in wildlife, now volunteered weekends at the reserve, helping maintain trails and educate visitors. "What happened to my son forced me to reconsider everything I thought I knew," he admitted during a rare interview. "I used to see nature as something separate from us, something to be controlled or exploited. Now I understand we're all connected in ways we barely comprehend." This newfound philosophy was tested severely when Leo was 4. A mining company proposed a large operation just 3 miles from the reserve. The project promised jobs and economic growth for Mapleton, which had struggled since the closure of its lumber mill. Many locals supported the plan, and the Harper family found themselves at the centre of a community divided. During a heated town hall meeting, 7-year-old Lily Anderson, the mayor's daughter, went missing. Search parties formed immediately, fear gripping the community as night fell and temperatures dropped. At dawn, Lily was found curled up asleep inside a hollow log half a mile into the reserve. Beside her, clearly visible in the disturbed earth, were bear tracks, large ones. "She followed me," Lily explained simply, echoing Noah's story. "She walked behind me and showed me where to hide for the night." Medical examinations confirmed Lily was unharmed, cold and hungry, but without injury. The search team found no evidence of human involvement in her survival, only signs that a large animal had circled the hollow log throughout the night, keeping predators at bay. Skeptics suggested coincidence, but when Leo visited Lily in the hospital, their conversation raised more questions than answers. "Did she grunt 3 times when she found you?" Leo asked. "Yes," Lily replied. "How did you know?" "That's how she says hello to cubs," Leo explained with the certainty only children possess. Dr. Kim confirmed that this specific vocalization, a series of 3 short grunts, was indeed a mother bear's typical greeting to her cubs upon returning to a den. This detail had never been mentioned in any public account of Leo's experience. The mining proposal was withdrawn a week later. In its place, the company funded an educational centre at the reserve entrance, a compromise that satisfied most community members. As Leo approached his 5th birthday, Emma and James noticed him becoming more articulate about his connection to Shadowclaw. No longer content with simple stories about Mama Bear, he began asking complex questions about why people hurt the forest and why animals couldn't talk to humans. "I think we understand each other just fine," Leo told his preschool teacher during a class discussion about communication. "People just forgot how to listen." Dr. Patel, who had continued studying the bear cub bones found in the Harpers' original backyard, revealed something surprising. The carbon dating tests showed the cub hadn't died 15 years ago during construction, as initially believed. The bones were much older, dating back nearly 50 years. "This changes our entire understanding of Shadowclaw's motivation," Dr. Patel explained. "Bears typically live 20 to 30 years in the wild. Shadowclaw, estimated to be around 20 years old based on dental examinations, couldn't possibly remember losing a cub at that location. It wasn't her cub at all." Dr. Kim reviewed thousands of hours of wildlife camera footage and discovered something astonishing. The distinctive scarring on Shadowclaw's face, which had earned her nickname, wasn't from fights with other bears. It was from old wire snares. Someone had tried to trap her when she was young. Based on the scar tissue formation, Dr. Kim estimated this happened when she was just a cub herself, likely witnessing her mother die in a similar trap. In light of this new information, Shadowclaw's behavior toward Leo takes on even deeper significance, Dr. Kim concluded. She didn't protect him because she remembered losing her own cub. She protected him because she remembered being a vulnerable cub herself, one who hadn't been saved. Leo's 6th birthday brought another surprise. As the family celebrated quietly at home, a Forest Service ranger truck pulled up urgently. "Shadowclaw has been shot," the ranger announced grimly. "Poachers. She's alive but critically injured." James didn't hesitate. Within hours, a makeshift veterinary surgical centre was established at the reserve entrance. Specialists flew in from the nearest wildlife rehabilitation centre, and dozens of Mapleton residents gathered outside, holding a silent vigil. Leo, despite his parents' attempts to shield him, became inconsolable. "She's hurting," he repeated between sobs. "She's calling for help." After consulting with Dr. Bennett, Emma and James made an unprecedented decision. Under strict supervision, Leo was allowed to approach the medical tent where Shadowclaw lay sedated after surgery to remove the bullet. Standing at a safe distance with his father's hands firmly on his shoulders, Leo whispered something only Shadowclaw could hear. The bear's vital signs, erratic despite medication, suddenly stabilized. "I've never seen anything like it," admitted the wildlife veterinarian. "It's as if she recognized his scent or his voice." Shadowclaw recovered slowly but steadily. The poachers were apprehended 3 days later. Trophy hunters who had crossed state lines specifically to target the famous bear. Public outrage led to stricter anti-poaching legislation being fast-tracked through the state assembly. By the time Leo started 1st grade, the story of the boy and the bear had evolved from local legend to case study. Universities established research programs dedicated to exploring interspecies empathy, and conservation efforts worldwide began incorporating new approaches based on findings from the Shadowclaw Reserve. Leo himself developed into a remarkably compassionate child. His teachers noted his unusual ability to resolve conflicts among classmates and his insistence on including everyone in activities. When asked why he was so kind to others, his answer was simple. "Because everyone gets scared and lost sometimes," Dr. Kim observed. On cool autumn mornings, visitors to the reserve might glimpse a large black bear watching from a distance as a small boy walks the boundary trail with his parents. They never cross the invisible line separating their worlds, yet something powerful connects them. A bond forged in one night of unexpected protection that changed both their lives forever. As Leo wrote in his 1st grade journal, "Some people don't believe my bear stories. That's okay. The forest knows they're true. And perhaps that too is wisdom enough." By the time Leo turned 7, the quiet life his parents had tried to create began shifting in unexpected ways. The educational centre at Shadowclaw Reserve had grown into a renowned research facility, attracting scientists from across the globe. What had begun as a local curiosity had evolved into something far more significant, a living laboratory for studying animal cognition and interspecies relationships. Dr. Rachel Kim, now heading the research department, published her preliminary findings in the Journal of Comparative Psychology. Her paper, titled "Adaptive Empathy in Ursus americanus, a Case Study of Cross-Species Protective Behavior," sparked heated debates in academic circles. Most of her colleagues remained skeptical, attributing Shadowclaw's behavior to coincidence or misinterpretation of natural instincts. "We must be cautious about anthropomorphizing wild animals," warned Dr. Michael Reynolds from Stanford University during a symposium on animal cognition. Bears aren't people in fur coats. They don't adopt human children or form emotional attachments as we understand them. Dr. Kim disagreed. We're not suggesting Shadowclaw thinks like a human. We're suggesting that our understanding of bear cognition is woefully incomplete. The data points to complex decision-making that our current models can't fully explain. The academic controversy might have remained confined to university lecture halls if not for a documentary filmmaker named Priya Mehta. Her film, The Guardian, The Boy and the Bear of Evergreen Woods, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival to critical acclaim. Using a combination of interviews, Dr. Kim's research footage, and hauntingly beautiful cinematography of the reserve, Priya created a narrative that resonated with audiences worldwide. I didn't set out to make a sentimental nature film, Priya explained during a post-screening discussion. I wanted to explore the grey area between scientific observation and human experience. What happens when something challenges both our understanding of nature and our place within it? The film's success brought new waves of attention to Mapleton. Tourism doubled, then tripled, and the small town struggled to accommodate the influx of visitors, many hoping to catch a glimpse of the famous bear, or, more problematically, the boy she had protected. Emma and James Harper hired a security company to patrol their property after several incidents of trespassing. They declined lucrative offers for exclusive interviews and turned down a six-figure book deal. Their priority remained protecting Leo's childhood from the media circus. He's just a little boy who wants to ride his bike and play with friends, Emma told their lawyer after rejecting yet another interview request. We won't turn him into a sideshow attraction. But as Leo grew, his own curiosity about his unique experience deepened. The questions he asked became more sophisticated. Why had Shadowclaw chosen to help him? Could other bears learn to coexist peacefully with humans? What happened to animals' minds when they formed connections with different species? His second-grade teacher, Ms. Margaret Collins, recognized Leo's unusual intellectual curiosity and contacted Dr. Kim. This child has questions that go beyond what I can answer in a classroom setting. Would you consider meeting with him, not as a research subject, but as a student? After careful discussion with the Harper family, a monthly mentorship arrangement began. Every third Saturday, Leo spent the morning at the research center, learning about wildlife biology, conservation, and animal behavior. Dr. Kim was careful never to treat him as an experimental subject, instead fostering his natural interest in the natural world. He has an intuitive understanding of animal behavior that many of my graduate students lack, Dr. Kim confided to Emma after one session. He notices patterns most adults would miss. During one of these educational mornings, when Leo was nearly 8, something unprecedented occurred. He was helping Dr. Kim classify trail camera footage when he suddenly went very still, staring at the monitor. She's trying to tell us something, he said, pointing to a sequence showing Shadowclaw deliberately marking a particular tree at the northwest boundary of the reserve. Bears often mark territory by clawing trees, Dr. Kim explained gently. No, this is different, Leo insisted. She's doing it every day at the same time. She wants someone to see. To humor him, Doctor. Kim reviewed the footage more carefully. To her astonishment, Leo was right. For 14 consecutive days, Shadowclaw had visited the same boundary tree at approximately 7:15 a.m., leaving distinctive marking patterns that differed from typical territorial behavior. The consistency is unusual, Dr. Kim admitted. But that doesn't necessarily mean, can we go there? Leo interrupted, his expression unusually serious. After consulting with forest rangers and Leo's parents, a carefully supervised expedition was arranged. James Harper insisted on accompanying his son, along with Dr. Kim and 2 experienced rangers. They arrived at the marked tree shortly after dawn on a crisp autumn morning. At first, they found nothing unusual, just a large pine with distinctive claw marks on its trunk. Leo circled the tree slowly, examining the ground with the methodical care he'd learned from Dr. Kim. Then he stopped, kneeling beside a depression in the earth, partially covered by fallen leaves. "Here," he said simply. The adults exchanged skeptical glances until one of the rangers brushed away the leaves, revealing a small opening, the entrance to what appeared to be an old animal den. Further investigation revealed it was a disused fox den, abandoned years ago when the fox pack moved deeper into the mountains. Inside, carefully arranged in a way that could not possibly be accidental, lay 3 objects: a child's glove, a rusted hunting trap, and a small, smooth river stone. The glove was unmistakable. It matched the pair Leo had been wearing the night he was found in the forest. The trap was old but functional, identical to the type that had likely scarred Shadowclaw as a cub. The stone's significance remained unclear until Dr. Kim examined it under a portable microscope. "There are trace blood samples on this stone," she announced, her voice unsteady, "and what appears to be milk residue. This is unprecedented." Laboratory analysis later confirmed the blood belonged to Shadowclaw, while the milk residue matched the composition of bear milk. The stone had been used as a nursing tool, a documented but rare behavior where mother bears with mouth injuries sometimes use smooth stones to help cubs access milk when direct nursing is difficult. "She's created a museum," Dr. Kim concluded in her supplemental research paper, "a deliberate collection of objects that represent significant events in her life, the human child she protected, the trap that injured her, and a tool that connects to her own experience of motherhood." The discovery rocked the scientific community. Critics argued that humans had planted the items to fabricate evidence, prompting an independent investigation. When that investigation confirmed the authenticity of the site and the impossibility of human interference, the den had been sealed by natural debris for at least 2 seasons before Shadowclaw began marking the tree. The implications became impossible to dismiss. "We must reconsider our fundamental assumptions about animal cognition," admitted Dr. Reynolds, previously one of Dr. Kim's most vocal critics. "The deliberate collection and preservation of symbolically significant objects suggests a level of abstract thinking previously undocumented in non-primate species." For Leo, now approaching his 9th birthday, the discovery confirmed what he had always known intuitively. "She remembers everything," he told his parents, "just like people do." The Bear Museum, as it came to be called, was carefully preserved and studied but not open to the public. Instead, digital documentation was made available to researchers worldwide, leading to new studies in comparative psychology and animal cognition. Shadowclaw herself remained elusive, appearing less frequently on trail cameras as she aged. Estimates suggested she was now in her early 20s, elderly for a wild bear. Dr. Kim worried that each winter might be her last, though she kept these concerns from Leo. Then came the winter of Leo's 9th year, the harshest in decades. Record snowfall isolated Mapleton for weeks. Power outages became common. Food grew scarce as delivery trucks couldn't navigate the mountain roads. The Harper family, well prepared with emergency supplies, fared better than most, but worry for their neighbours led James to organise a community resource sharing program. Leo insisted on helping, using his sled to deliver canned goods to elderly neighbours. Emma accompanied him on these expeditions, never allowing him to venture far from home in the dangerous conditions. Until the morning they received the call about the Peterson family. John and Linda Peterson lived in an isolated cabin 3 miles outside town with their 4-year-old twins, Rose and Ryan. John had ventured out 2 days earlier to reach the emergency medical centre in town. Linda had developed a high fever and needed antibiotics. He never returned. The radio call came from Linda, barely coherent through fever and fear. The children were hungry, the firewood nearly gone, and the temperature dropping. "No one can reach them in these conditions," the emergency coordinator explained to the volunteer group gathered at the community centre. "The snow is too deep for vehicles, and the Forest Service helicopter can't fly in this weather." Leo, who had accompanied his father to the meeting, spoke up. "I know a way." The adults might have dismissed him, but the past years had taught them to listen when Leo Harper made such declarations. Under normal circumstances, James would never have agreed to his son's plan, but these weren't normal circumstances, and children's lives were at stake. "You're sure?" he asked Leo privately. "She'll help us," Leo replied with absolute certainty. The plan took shape quickly. James, Leo, and 2 experienced forest rangers would attempt to reach the Peterson cabin on foot, using Leo's knowledge of game trails that might be more passable than the main roads. They would bring emergency supplies, medication, and a portable stretcher. Emma protested vehemently until Linda's weakening voice came through on the radio again, accompanied by the sound of crying children in the background. Some risks had to be taken. The expedition set out at dawn, following Leo's lead. Conditions were brutal. Wind-driven snow reduced visibility to mere feet, and temperatures hovered near zero. The men struggled through snowdrifts, while Leo moved with surprising confidence, occasionally stopping to listen to something only he seemed to hear. "This way," he would say, pointing to passages between trees that adult eyes might have missed. 2 miles into the forest, disaster struck. One of the rangers broke through a snow-covered ice patch over a stream, plunging into frigid water up to his chest. Hypothermia became an immediate threat. James and the second ranger managed to pull him out, but it was clear he needed immediate medical attention. "We have to turn back," the second ranger insisted, already helping his partner remove wet clothing. James looked torn, glancing between the injured man and the direction of the Peterson cabin, still a mile away. "Dad and I will go on," Leo said firmly. "You get him back to town." The rangers objected strenuously, but time was working against them all. A compromise was reached. Emergency supplies would be divided. The rangers would return with most of the group's safety equipment, while James and Leo would continue with the medical supplies for Linda, carrying only basic survival gear. As father and son pressed on alone, the storm intensified. Twice they lost the trail completely, finding themselves in unfamiliar sections of the forest. James's wilderness experience was substantial, but even he became disoriented in the whiteout conditions. "We need to find shelter," he finally admitted, his face crusted with ice. "We can try again when the storm eases." "We're close," Leo insisted. "Just a little further." Then came the sound, 3 distinct grunts cutting through the howling wind. Leo froze, then broke into a smile. "She's here," he whispered. James saw nothing at first, just swirling snow between dark tree trunks. Then a massive shadow materialized 20 yards ahead. the unmistakable silhouette of Shadowclaw. The bear made no threatening moves. She simply turned and began walking slowly through the trees, looking back as if to ensure they followed. "Leo, wait!" James began, but his son was already moving, following the bear with absolute trust. What choice did he have? James followed, one hand on the emergency flare gun in his pocket. For nearly 30 minutes, they trailed the bear through paths that seemed impossibly clear of deep snow. Shadowclaw chose routes between trees, where overhanging branches had blocked the worst of the snowfall. She paused occasionally, waiting when they fell behind. The Peterson cabin appeared ahead just as daylight began to fade, a dim light visible through frost-covered windows. Shadowclaw stopped at the edge of the clearing, watching as Leo and James approached the door. Inside, they found a desperate situation. Linda lay semi-conscious on a couch pulled close to the dying fire, her fever dangerously high. The twins huddled under blankets nearby, frightened and hungry. The cabin temperature was barely above freezing. James immediately administered the antibiotics and began treating Linda, while Leo focused on rebuilding the fire. The problem was immediately apparent. There was almost no dry firewood left. "Stay inside," James instructed as he zipped up his coat. "I'll find something to burn." "Wait," Leo said, moving to the window. Outside, in the deepening twilight, a remarkable scene was unfolding. Shadowclaw was dragging a fallen branch toward the cabin. As they watched in astonishment, she made 3 trips to the woodpile at the side of the house, retrieving branches and logs that had been buried under snow. She arranged them in a neat pile near the front door, then retreated to the forest edge. "She's helping us," Leo said simply. James, a man whose world view had been repeatedly challenged over the years, found he could no longer deny the evidence before his eyes. "Yes," he acknowledged quietly. "She is." The wood Shadowclaw had uncovered allowed them to restore heat to the cabin through the night. James tended to Linda while Leo cared for the twins, telling them stories about forest animals that made them giggle despite their fear. Occasionally, Leo would glance out the window to where Shadowclaw maintained her vigil at the forest edge, a dark sentinel against the snow. Once, when James checked, he found Leo sitting by the window with his palm pressed against the glass. On the other side, barely visible in the moonlight, was Shadowclaw's massive paw print in the snow, perfectly aligned with the boy's small hand. Morning brought clear skies and the sound of approaching snowmobiles. A rescue party from town had managed to get through once the storm abated. As medical personnel took charge of Linda and the children, Leo stepped outside one last time. Shadowclaw was gone, but a clear trail of her tracks led back into the forest. "She knows we're safe now," Leo explained to his father. The Peterson family's rescue became another chapter in the growing legend. John Peterson was found alive the next day, sheltering in a cave after becoming disoriented in the storm. Once recovered, he visited the Harper family to express his gratitude. "The rangers told me what happened," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "About the bear, about Leo. I didn't believe in miracles before." "Not miracles," Leo corrected gently. "Just friendship." As Leo entered 4th grade, the research at Shadowclaw Reserve expanded to include collaborative projects with Indigenous knowledge keepers. Elijah Redfeather, an elder from the region's native community, began working with Dr. Kim to document traditional understandings of bear behavior. "Our stories speak of guardian bears who watch over lost children," Elijah explained during a presentation at the research center. "Science dismissed these as mere legends. but perhaps your experience shows there's wisdom in the old ways of knowing. Leo absorbed these teachings eagerly, often sitting with Elijah to learn traditional tracking methods and the symbolic language of animal behavior. Their conversations frequently turned philosophical in ways that surprised the adults present. "Do you think animals have souls?" Leo once asked the elder. Elijah considered the question carefully. "Our people believe all living things carry spirit, not the same as humans, but no less important. What do you think, Leo Harper?" "I think we're all connected," Leo replied. "Like threads in the same blanket. We just forget how to feel the tugging sometimes." Elijah smiled. "You speak with old wisdom for such young eyes." The winter of Leo's 10th year brought both celebration and concern. The reserve was officially designated a National Wildlife Research Area, ensuring its protection in perpetuity. But Shadowclaw had not been sighted for nearly 2 months, unusually long, even accounting for seasonal hibernation. "She's just tired," Leo explained. "Bears get old too." Dr. Kim privately told Emma and James that Shadowclaw had likely reached the natural end of her lifespan. 25 years is exceptional for a wild bear, especially one with her history of injuries. We should prepare Leo for the possibility that she won't emerge in spring. But when spring arrived, bringing the forest's renewal, something unexpected happened. Trail cameras near Shadowclaw's known den captured footage of not one bear, but 2. Shadowclaw, noticeably thinner and moving slowly, was accompanied by a younger female bear with distinctive facial markings similar to hers. A daughter. A daughter? Dr. Kim wondered, reviewing the footage. But she's too old to have cubs. This bear is at least 3 or 4 years old. DNA analysis of hair samples eventually provided an answer that again defied conventional understanding. The younger bear was indeed Shadowclaw's offspring, but from a litter born nearly 5 years earlier. Female bears typically drive away their grown cubs to establish separate territories, yet Shadowclaw had somehow maintained contact with this daughter. Now, they travelled together, the elder bear clearly benefiting from the younger's hunting prowess. "It's reciprocal care," Dr. Kim explained in her updated research. The daughter is now caring for the mother who once cared for her, a behaviour rarely documented in wild bears. Leo, now approaching his 11th birthday, seemed unsurprised by this development. "That's what family does," he said simply when shown the footage. "They help each other." As Shadowclaw's movements became increasingly limited by age, her daughter, nicknamed Echo by the research team, began appearing more frequently at the boundaries where Shadowclaw had once patrolled. She showed no interest in human interaction, but maintained the same vigilant presence her mother had established. Leo's connection to the forest continued to deepen under the tutelage of both Dr. Kim and Elder Redfeather. He developed remarkable skills in wildlife tracking and observation. His journal entries, initially simple childish observations, evolved into detailed field notes that Dr. Kim occasionally consulted for her research. "He sees things differently," she told Emma during a parent-teacher conference. "Not just the physical signs, but patterns of behaviour that even trained researchers might miss." The summer of Leo's 11th year brought both triumph and heartbreak. The Shadowclaw Reserve model of conservation, combining scientific research with indigenous knowledge and community involvement, was being replicated in wildlife areas across the country. The educational programs developed there reached thousands of school children annually. Leo himself, though kept away from publicity, contributed drawings and stories to the children's section of the visitor centre. Then came the morning when Leo woke his parents before dawn, tears streaming down his face. "She's gone," he said simply. Emma and James had learned to trust their son's inexplicable connection to the forest. James immediately called Dr. Kim, who organised a small search team to check Shadowclaw's known denning areas. They found her body in a small clearing surrounded by wildflowers, a peaceful place dappled with morning sunlight. Echo lay beside her mother's form, reluctantly moving away only when the humans approached. Examination confirmed what they already knew. Shadowclaw had died of natural causes, her remarkable life coming to its natural conclusion. The community of Mapleton debated how to honour her memory. Some suggested a taxidermy display at the visitor centre. Others, a bronze statue. Leo rejected both ideas. "She belongs to the forest," he insisted, "not in a building." In the end, they followed his wishes. Shadowclaw was buried in her chosen resting place, the location marked only by a simple stone. The official records noted her scientific contributions and the paradigm-shifting research her behaviour had inspired. But for the people of Mapleton, and especially for Leo Harper, she represented something that transcended scientific categorization, a reminder that the boundaries between species might be more permeable than humans had believed, that compassion could manifest in unexpected forms, and that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from simply paying attention to the world beyond our human concerns. Echo remained in Shadowclaw's territory, occasionally glimpsed by researchers, but never approaching humans as her mother had done. Yet on certain mornings, Leo would walk to the reserve boundary and stand quietly. More often than not, a large bear would appear briefly at the forest edge, close enough to see, too distant to reach. "She likes Shadowclaw?" Dr. Kim once asked him. Leo considered the question carefully. "No," he finally answered. "She's herself, but she remembers." As Leo grew into adolescence, his childhood experience shaped his developing identity in profound ways. He volunteered at wildlife rehabilitation centres, joined conservation projects, and eventually began speaking to small groups about human-wildlife coexistence, always deflecting personal questions about his own story, focusing instead on the larger message. "We think we're separate from nature," he would explain to attentive audiences. "But we're not. We're part of the same world, breathing the same air, drinking the same water. Maybe we just need to remember how to listen." The Harper family remained in Mapleton, becoming integral members of a community transformed by their story. Emma established a foundation supporting environmental education in schools. James, the former skeptic, became an advocate for conservation-based economic development, helping the town transition from resource extraction to sustainable tourism and research. And Leo. He continued to visit the forest boundary. Sometimes Echo would appear, sometimes not. But the connection remained, not dramatic or miraculous, simply a quiet acknowledgement between two different beings sharing the same world. On his 16th birthday, Leo hiked alone to Shadowclaw's resting place, now covered with moss and wildflowers. He sat beside the grave for hours, writing in his journal as afternoon light filtered through the trees. What he wrote remained private, but when he returned home that evening, something in his expression had shifted. A certain peace had settled in his eyes. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, recognizing that something had changed. "Yes," Leo replied. "I finally understood what she was trying to tell me all these years." Which was? Leo smiled, looking toward the forest visible through their kitchen window. That we're never really alone, not if we learn to see the connections,